To Dr. Mensch, the radio show that takes a real, compassionate look at mental health from A to Z. Join child and adolescent psychiatrist Dr. Gil Lichtshein each week as we explore topics that matter: autism, ADHD, anxiety, depression, OCD, schizophrenia, behavioral challenges, neurodevelopmental disorders, and more. No stigma, no judgment. Just honest conversations, new therapies, breakthrough treatments, and real solutions for real people. Mental health is not a weakness. It's a treatable medical condition, and help is available. Join the conversation now by calling the studio at 888-994-4995, Studio A. This is Dr. Mensch, where hope and healing begin.
Good afternoon. This is Dr. Gil Lichtshein, aka Dr. Mensch. I'm a board-certified child, adolescent, and adult psychiatrist in Boca Raton, Florida, where my office is located at 7100 West Camino Real, Suite 302 in Boca Raton. Here live at studio in Boca, where it's a hot Monday in August. Outside it's like 110, 115 degrees. I wish it cooled off, but we're gonna have to wait here about another 2.5 to 3 months before we'll see temperatures cooling off. Today I'd like to talk about kind of destigmatizing mental illness. Yesterday or this morning I wake up and I go on to Fox News online and I see the headlines, Hayden, I hope I'm not butchering, Pantier, I think that's how it's pronounced. And I remember her from the TV series Nashville, and apparently she was also on that was on ABC, and then she was on the I think before that, Heroes on NBC. I never saw that, but I remember her from Nashville. I mean, that was going back 10 years, maybe 12 years. So she was like in her early to mid-20s. She died, she was only 36 years old. Unbelievable. Today's world, when I hear someone mid-30s dying, I'm either thinking cancer, car accident of some sort, or unfortunately either like suicide or a drug overdose. I mean, I know with her, she has had some history of substance abuse issues in the past. I think it may have played a role in why she has her biological father of her daughter, actually Vladimir Klitschko, who I believe was like a heavyweight champion many years ago, and I think, I don't know if it's him or his brother is like the mayor of Kiev, Ukraine. But to hear her dying, again, I don't know the circumstances, but I'm given her history of substance use issues, and makes me wonder, did she relapse, or did her years of drug use kind of finally catch up to her, even though she may have been clean, but the toll that it did to her body, did it finally catch up to her? But again, I don't want to make any presumptions or conclusions. I don't know what the cause of death is, but it's kind of sad. But she did have a mental health history. And then when I was looking on, reading the article on foxnews.com, there was a little tag that says, click here to see Hollywood celebrities that have died in 2026. And I know there were still about about a quarter of the year left, but I was looking through, and it was shocking to see the number of celebrities or family of celebrities that have died from drug overdose or suicide. I mean, it's shocking. Martin Short's daughter. There was another, I think, Tommy Lee Jones' daughter. Then Keith Carradine. It says he died from complications of bipolar disorder. To me, I'm thinking, complications of bipolar disorder would mean suicide. Bipolar itself, doesn't kill you. It's kind of the after effects. So I'm thinking suicide, but that was at least 3, and maybe a few others. And it's kind of wow, you're having like 5, 6, 7 people die from some mental health related issues among the Hollywood elite or Hollywood celebrities, kind of showing that mental health can strike anybody at any time, and it doesn't matter what social status you have, whether you're some Hollywood elite or you're some average Joe, who's working as a plumber. It doesn't, mental illness doesn't target a certain group, but yet, even in today's world where we try to, I don't want to say normalize mental health, but at least with my patients, I try to, describe mental illness no differently than any other medical problem. Nevertheless, there's still some stigma. And again, despite more and more education, you hear, athletes who've come out with their own, mental health issues. To say at least in the last 10 years, Kevin Love, I don't know if he's still in the NBA, but he played professionally for the Minnesota Timberwolves, Cleveland Cavaliers, more recently with the Miami Heat. I believe he won the NBA championship with LeBron James in 2016. Ricky Williams, who, any Dolphin fans, was an amazing running back for the Miami Dolphins and New Orleans Saints. And then I believe he may have won the Heisman when he was at the University of Texas. But he was kind of notorious that every time he'd have not a press conference, but after practice or after a game, he'd talk to the media. He'd always wear his helmet. He finally came out saying he suffers from social anxiety disorder, and then later he's kind of made it out that one way he was dealing with it was by smoking cannabis, and he's become a big cannabis advocate. Kevin Love, came out also talking about how he had, I believe, either generalized anxiety disorder or panic disorder. Another famous athlete, Zach Greinke, who was a Hall of Fame caliber pitcher who pitched with the LA Dodgers and Kansas City Royals when he was younger, and early on in his career suffered also, I believe, from social anxiety disorder. So these athletes have tried to come out to try to discuss their own mental health struggles and try to educate people that it could hit anybody. It doesn't matter who you are or what you are. But yet there's still a lot of stigma associated with it. I'll give you an example. Yesterday, I get a text from a woman, not my patient, I don't know her, but she's the sister of, her sister is like the wife of the rabbi of a local Chabad synagogue in Fort Lauderdale, and I, had treated one of the sisters, this woman's children in the past, and so I guess the sister gave the mother, the rabbi's wife gave her sister my name and number, and she's calling me, and these are ultra Orthodox Jews, and I'm Jewish, and I grew up in a very Orthodox family. On my father's side, were extremely like Hasidic Jews, ultra Orthodox, like with the locks and the black hats and you name it. And in that type of culture, mental health is not discussed. It's a taboo. It's kind of like swept under the carpet, so to speak, or under the rug. It's just something you don't discuss, and in some of those circles, they'll say God will, cure, and you pray to God, and you believe in God, and follow the commandments, and keep the Sabbath and keep kosher, etc. That God will heal. But so this woman's calling me and talking to me about her adult, like mid-30s daughter, and sounds like from what she described, her daughter either has schizophrenia or bipolar disorder, but the daughter's in complete denial. the rest of the family is kind of like tried to like shun and ostracize her, not want to deal with it. But the mother is trying to kind of grasp at straws and try to figure out how she could help her daughter, who's completely in denial of her mental illness. And unfortunately, there's still a lot of cultural stigma. Last week I did a forensic evaluation on a older individual who's on disability. He was a respiratory therapist, sustained a work-related injury where he was trying to lift some oxygen canister and it caused some back problems, and he suffers from chronic pain, and it's affected his ability to work and affected his mobility, and he's become sad and anxious. And he even said himself, I'm a proud Haitian man, and in my culture, we kind of internalize our issues and try to handle it as a Haitian male. And finally, he realized he needed to speak to somebody to kind of let out, what was going on in him internally. But again, these cultural, factors that play a role to kind of, I don't want to say stigmatize or put a taboo on mental health and mental illness, but they kind of look at mental illness differently from other medical problems. And so even in, we're in 2026, we're actually closer to 2027, but, we're in the third decade of the 21st century, and yet, mental health still has some taboo or stigma that perhaps doesn't apply to other areas of medicine like cancer or diabetes or high blood pressure. I could be wrong, but I'm not aware where someone having high cholesterol, where that's stigmatized in certain cultures or religions or families or ethnic groups, or having cancer is stigmatized or causes one to be ostracized or excommunicated. Mental health, having psychiatric problems, you kind of can get ostracized or kind of marginalized. I mean, even historically, before, Nazi Germany, before they went on their genocidal murder spree against Jews, Nazi ideology with, they're the superior race, the Aryan race, the highest, on the totem pole. Well, before, the Third Reich waged their imperialist wars on their neighbors, they had it's called Action T4, where it was state-mandated euthanasia on undesirable or like mentally defective, developmentally delayed Germans. So they would send them to these kind of sanitariums, insane asylums, whatever you want to call it. So patients with, what would be called schizophrenia, patients with perhaps what is now considered autism and other type of developmental disabilities and mental health issues, and they would be gassed and killed because they were looked as defective. And so again, the German Reich didn't want to deal with this humanely. They were like, in some ways, they kind of viewed them as undesirables. They couldn't fulfill the roles as perfect Aryans, so they killed them. That's an extreme, but still, even going back 80, 90 years, mental health was looked at differently, and it's still today. I'm not saying today any cultures advocate euthanizing patients with schizophrenia or autism or any type of intellectual disability or other developmental disabilities, but they're looked differently. And someone with schizophrenia in a family kind of may have a different, people will look at them differently than if you were diagnosed with breast cancer or lung cancer, prostate cancer, or some other medical problem. And that's unfortunate, because in some ways, mental illness takes more of a toll on a family than most medical problems. I mean, if, let's say, you're in a relationship or married to someone with high cholesterol, I mean, for the most part, that's not going to cause someone, with a cholesterol of 300 or high triglycerides or, let's say, high blood pressure. I mean, it's not necessarily going to cause major rifts or result in you having to monitor or supervise your partner. But compared to, say, someone with bipolar disorder, that's, let's say, untreated, and someone going through the manic highs or real low depressive episodes, or patient who's manic, who's essentially kind of out of control, difficult to kind of restrain, to constrain, or someone who's depressed and suicidal, that or someone, in a schizophrenic psychotic break or psychotic episode, that is much more, taxing and stress-inducing to a family than someone who's like, hey, honey, I just got my blood test and my triglycerides are 300 and my LDL is 200 and my cholesterol is 350, versus, a person trying to deal with their manic significant other or manic spouse, manic girlfriend, boyfriend, or partner, but yet mental health kind of gets this kind of, I say, cold shoulder, or kind of looked at differently, when in fact, how I try to explain to patients is that mental health issues are medical problems. I'll give an example. A few weeks ago, I saw a 15-year-old young man who clearly, I mean, after like 5 minutes of talking to him, I already knew, like, he had obsessive compulsive disorder. It didn't take a rocket scientist to figure it out, but this kid was suffering, like, just couldn't, he was just non-functioning, couldn't leave the house. Parents had to homeschool him, and yet the parents are telling me how they don't want to, it took them forever to get this kid medicated. And even such, they're kind of putting, tying, their psychiatrist, one of his hands kind of behind his back, because they're kind of restricting how aggressively the psychiatrist could adjust the child's medication. I'm trying to understand, like, why. And they're like, well, we don't like medications, and we don't want to give our kid any psychotropic medications. And I'm trying to understand, like, why. They're like, well, we just don't believe in it. And I'm like, okay, but don't you see your kid suffering? And they're like, yeah. And so I'm like, you have your psychiatrist provide, he was prescribing him fluoxetine, and he was prescribing him 10 milligrams. And I was trying to explain to him that in OCD, you really got to get aggressive with the dosing. And so you're basically like undertreating your son, and you're letting him suffer. And I'm trying to understand, like, how they're just okay with letting their son suffer. And I basically, said, like, okay, if your son had epilepsy or had asthma or had diabetes, what would you do? And you're like, oh, if my son had, epilepsy, we would treat it. And I'm like, would you? He's like, yeah. Well, like, with what? Oh, we would go to a neurologist, and and if he prescribed, seizure medicines, we would take it. And I said, well, why would you be okay allowing your son to take anti-seizure drugs, but you're not letting him take higher doses of fluoxetine? And they didn't, they had a hard time on, giving an answer. And I'm like, the one thing is like, well, if he had a seizure, he could die. I'm like, okay, his OCD may not kill him per se, but he's suffering, he can't function, he can't go to school. And I will continue that after a brief commercial break.
What happens when the mind of a healer crosses over into the darkness of the human soul? From authors David Icovetti, Dr. Gil Lichtshein, and Yolanda DeLuca comes a chilling psychological thriller, Dr. Mensch, A Prescription for Evil. This gripping novel follows a respected Boca Raton psychiatrist who secretly descends into madness, transforming into a modern-day king of the underworld. Inspired by true events and Dr. Gil's childhood connection to a mob family, this story blurs the line between sanity and evil, genius and destruction. Unforgettable, disturbing, impossible to put down. Get your copy today on Amazon.com. Dr. Mensch, A Prescription for Evil, a 2020 psychological crime thriller. You're listening to Dr. Mensch with child and adolescent psychiatrist Dr. Gil Lichtshein. For a copy of his powerful new book, Dr. Mensch's Prescription for Evil, visit Amazon.com. For more information or to schedule a consultation, contact Dr. Gil directly at 561-300-4052 or visit docgil.com. Now, let's get back to the show.
Welcome back. This is Dr. Gil Lichtshein, aka Dr. Mensch, talking about trying to destigmatize, mental health and mental illness. And I was giving a little example of a 15-year-old boy that I saw a few weeks back with really severe OCD, and the parents were very reluctant. They finally relented to medicate the child, but they were kind of hamstringing the treating psychiatrist. It came to me for a second opinion, and I basically told them, you got to let his doctor treat him. And then I, try to give the example, like if he had seizures, and parents were like, absolutely, we would treat him. And I was explaining to them that, common seizure medications, and I was saying this out of experience because I prescribe a lot of anti-epileptic medications because they have mood stabilizing properties. That I said a lot of these seizure drugs are much more toxic than Prozac. I gave an example like divalproic sodium can cause pancreatitis, can cause liver failure, weight gain. You got to check levels. It's a pretty serious drug. Prozac doesn't do any of that. But yet I try to say, like, why would you be okay giving your child this potentially toxic drug if you're so anti-medicine, but you have a problem giving him Prozac, which I'm not saying is a perfect drug, but it's a generally safe medication when used appropriately in teenagers. So, their explanation again, epilepsy can kill him, OCD won't. And I'm like, maybe that's true, but I'm like, your son can't function. Your son's immobilized by his illness. He can't do anything. This is, think of the quality of life he's having. He's not. So I'm hoping that, and I said OCD is a treatable medical condition no differently than epilepsy, diabetes, asthma, or any other, or cancer for that matter. Okay, maybe there's no blood test that can show that someone's OCD is getting better. There's no brain scan that can show the OCD is improving, but nonetheless, unlike most other medical specialties in psychiatry, when someone's being prescribed a medication, the patient can kind of provide input like, I'm feeling better, I'm not as anxious, I'm not as depressed, the voices have gone away. Whereas if you're given a medicine for cholesterol, there's no way you're going to know, I think my cholesterol is down, or I can tell my blood pressure is down, or I can tell my lipids went down. You can't tell. You have to take a blood test. But in psychiatry, if you're hearing voices telling you to do A, B, and C, and you're prescribed an antipsychotic, and let's say a couple weeks later, hey, what's going on? How are the voices? Oh, they're gone, or they're much less reduced. Yes, granted, there's no brain scan that can prove it, but a patient's able to report. So I was hopeful, at least hoping that by the time my consultation with them ended, that I at least gave them a glimpse of, like, put aside your fears and don't let that get in the way of treating your son, and try to kind of educate them that mental illness in many ways is no different than other medical problems, and that in some ways it can be more debilitating to a family than many medical problems, maybe except like say cancer for them. But again, taking the example of say high blood pressure, high cholesterol versus in this case like OCD, this child having OCD is really impacting the family. He's not going to school. It affects the parents, work schedule. It's affecting the other children in the family. Whereas if let's say he had high cholesterol, I don't think it would have the same impact. So, with all these like celebrities and athletes coming out about their own mental health issues, and I think doctors and other medical professionals out there can try to help explain to patients that having a mental health issue is no different than having any other medical problem, that they can be treated the same way you can treat diabetes, you can treat bipolar disorder. Same way you could treat cancer, or many cancers, you could treat schizophrenia. There's no cures, but there are effective treatments that can allow a patient with a severe mental health issue live a good quality of life, and try to help people kind of break out of whatever cultural, religious, ethnic stereotypes or and stigmas that having mental health issues doesn't make you strange or less of a person or weak or defective in any way. You could be the physically strongest person and you could have anxiety. It doesn't make you defective or weak. You could be the shortest person and have some type of mental health issue. So we just need a lot of people just to continue to educate others, come out with their own, as long as you're comfortable coming out with your own kind of stories and explain that mental health issues can affect anybody, anywhere, anytime, regardless of your standing in society. And on that note, this is Dr. Mensch, aka Dr. Lichtshein, Gil Lichtshein, wishing everybody a great day, stay cool, and have a great week. Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us for Dr. Mensch with Dr. Gil Lichtshein, helping you navigate the world of mental health with clarity and care. If you or someone you love needs support, you're not alone. Treatment works and recovery is possible. To schedule a consultation or discuss non-medication therapies, personalized treatment plans, or psychiatric care, contact Dr. Gil directly at 561-300-4052 or visit docgil.com. You can catch us each week on South Florida Oldies Radio and streaming across all social platforms. Until next time.